Salutation. Good day, good day, good day. Happy Friday. Um, is a thing we say. I have happy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But for many, Friday being the end of the work week does bring a little bit of joy for those of us who honor the Sabbath. Um, it adds that extra special because we know that we're about to enter a day of rest. We're, focusing in on the things of the Lord, studying, worship, meditation, all those different things. Just stepping away from the usual humdrumness of the week and really getting a chance to focus in on the things that matter to the spirit. Um, and then also those that are prepping for Sunday, special day in honor of the resurrection day. And you're going to gather on Sunday and meet with your family, get a word, and worship the Lord and have your time with Him. And so we do get a little happy about Friday because of the things that it's foretelling. So we are about to get started here. A few minutes out of order. Forgive me for my late start, but we will get moving because we do have a good bit of reading. We're gonna look at some things. This lesson presents a perfect opportunity for a pause to stop and consider and look at the translation and some of the decisions that are made of the different translations. And we're going to look at a passage where a word is translated differently in different versions. And so we're going to do that. Let me get this situated so that we can have our comments up for those who would be catching on with us later. Um, so let's get going. We have transitioned from where we were looking at Joseph and Jacob and all of those things. Joseph has passed away. We're under a different administration of pharaohs. We are under a different generation with the family. We are Scholars think anywhere from 145 or so to 215, I think was the number that I saw. Um, Potentially about 200 years later. We know that the full time that they were in Egypt is right approximately 430 years. And over that time period, there have been different pharaohs. The initial pharaoh, who was at the beginning of the story, because of Joseph's favor, Joseph found favor with him, and he was, vital to the survival of the kingdom and everything. So, of course, there's a different relationship that he has with them, and so they have that experience early in. Well, now, as we read yesterday, we're under a new pharaoh who doesn't really have that same relationship with Joseph. It specifically says he didn't know Joseph, and of course he didn't. It's hundreds of years later, and so we're seeing a different experience because the children of Israel have been up in the land of Goshen that was given to them. Um, and we know that Ramses is concerned about that area because it's he actually has his name on that place by the time we get to where we're going. And so this Pharaoh is concerned, and we're about to see some things that were taking place in the previous chapter. We saw that there was a command given that the male children, when they were born, were to be killed, and he even when he couldn't get the midwives to follow through with that command, it was just a general command given to the people. So this person that we're about to see born, like there's a hit on him before he's born. And it, of course, we know that we see something similar happening in the time of Christ. But this is one of the first tellings that we see where there is a specific assignment from the enemy on the males of the bloodline. And we know in the beginning, Bereshit, in Genesis, there was a foretelling of a conqueror in the bloodline, and surprised that the enemy comes for the word of the Lord. When we get down uh, chapters later, the importance of making sure that hidden in your heart. We're going to see the importance of making sure that cover your children when there's promise spoken over their lives. As in the case of Israel, we're going to see covenant activated. We're going to see some things happen for them because of the things that are happening to them. Okay. All right. So let's get moving. Let's get to reading and we'll stop, as I said, to look at a situation with translations pretty early here. Okay. So Exodus 2, we're going to be looking at the birth of the person we were talking about, Moses, or Mosheh, for those of you who have been learning the names in Hebrew. A man from the household of Levi married a woman who was a descendant of Levi. So remember the sons of Israel. Well, we're looking at Moses' lineage is of that son Levi, Simeon, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, third son. And the man and the woman who are married from that lineage. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a healthy child, she hid him for 3 months. Now, I have that verse highlighted because I wanted to take a pause, one of my rabbit trails, and look at something concerning that verse. I made a decision to use the net translation while I was preparing my slides. And because I noticed a difference in the translation, and I think that it is a good one for us to look at. So, what we have in that scripture, I started out using the NASB, and the NASB translates that scripture as the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. Notice it says that when she saw that he was beautiful. Now, in our English, connotation, that's going to mean a certain thing. And so I was like, well, wait. When I looked at that word beautiful, or I literally was drawn, was like beautiful was highlighted for me. So I went back and I looked and I'm like, why? That's an interesting word. That's an interesting choice of words. What does that mean? And so when I went back to look at it, I always use my KJV when I'm going back to look at scriptures and look at the Hebrew or Greek of a scripture. I'm generally going to go back over to my KJV version. And when I went to my KJV version, what I saw was the KJV had a different word choice. So I'm not just going back over there to get to the Strongs into the lexicon. When I get there and it's got a different word, oh, now I got to take a pause. I really got to look. And so the KJV words it is this. It says, and the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And so I'm like, okay, hold on now. Beautiful, speaking of countenance, beautiful is a word, but let's look at goodly. Like, what was the decision here on goodly? Like, where did this come from? So, the word that got translated there as goodly starts out in Hebrew as tov, which means good, but in the sense of good, properly functioning. Like everything was doing what it needed to do where this kid is concerned. And so that is why when we're reading the translation that we used here, the net version translates it a little differently. It says, the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a healthy child, she hid him for 3 months. Now that just given what just given that there is an assignment from hell on the life of these boys, the fact that that child was healthy versus the fact that that child was beautiful, good to look at, it means just says something a little different to me. Maybe means this may be mean absolutely nothing to anybody else, but to me, I believe that to be a significant um, decision that was made where those translations were concerned, and so that healthy really would get to the core of the decision to take a chance on this child's life, not just because he looks good, but also this child is healthy and making a decision that this child deserves life. Not only am I not a murderer and just going to kill my own child or leave my child in a place where he's definitely guaranteed to be killed, but because this is a child who deserves to live, because this is a child, and we don't know those things that that child is going to be. All this mother knew was that it was necessary for her to preserve this child's life, especially given that this child is born healthy. There's nothing wrong with this child. Why would we waste a life, even if this child had been born with a malady, a defect, or whatever? There would be no reason to kill this child. There would be no reason for that. But because she sees this child and knows that like, because this child is healthy, because this child is mine, I'm not going to take his life. Because this child is healthy, let's do what it is that we need to do to make sure that this child survives. And what I love is the NASB translated it as beautiful. The King James uses goodly, which, poetically sounds good. The net calls the child healthy. But let me tell you what I love. Good old fashioned amplified. Amplified says we're not even going to argue about whether it's beautiful or whether it's. The Amplified says the woman conceived, gave birth to a son, and when she saw that he was especially beautiful and healthy, she hid him for 3 months to protect him from the Egyptians. So the that Amplified, you remember, I don't have that slide in this one. I needed it. I should have had it. But there's that spectrum of translations. They're not telling you different things. There are translation choices that are made. Now, there are some that we use that to say, see, the translators are inconsistent. No, Tove is in some instances translated as beautiful. When it's used as an adverb, most especially, is one of the times when it's going to be translated as beautiful. And it's the same root word that's used there. Generally, it's going to be pronounced tuv, and it means well. It means beautiful. It's talking about goodness. And so there are decisions made in these translations, and you can get your amplified, which is more of a thought for thought. You can get, your KJV, which is kind of on that side of more word for word than thought for thought. You've got all there's like translations are a spectrum. It's not just one thing, and so you want to make sure that you allow that you understand those decisions. And it's not a contradiction. It's not, see, they lying. See, because they lied in the, no, 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 no. Don't let people fool you out of your faith. There's no contradictions in there may be a contradiction in our understanding. There may be a contradiction in how we apply it. There may be but those are man's contradictions. The word of the Lord is solid, and it means what it means, and it said what it said. And what we have here is a child who had a death sentence on his life before he's even born. Mom makes a decision. This child is healthy and him cute too. Him healthy and him cute. Oh, to make some moves. And what a blessing. Again, that's why it's important that you pour into your children. She doesn't know what Moses is going to go on to do. She has no idea. This is my baby, and I'm gonna do what I can. Lord, on a journey in life, I was raised by several relatives my entire life with my mama. That's my mama. That's my girl. But the Lord, not that I needed to spend time in certain situations. And so I have a Joseph mentality about my life. There was a time when I didn't have that. What I had was bitterness. What I had that was. And what I came to understand was um, there was so much that I needed in this life. No one person. Thank the Lord for my mama. I miss her every day. I thank the Lord for my grandmama. I miss her every day. I thank the Lord for my Aunt Zora. I miss her every day. Thank the Lord for my I love her. She's my cousin. I won't even disrespect her by calling her cousin. I call her auntie just out of respect for who the Lord used her in my life. Nobody had any idea what I was to be. Thank the Lord that every single one of those women, every single one of the dad, early V, every single one of those people is a part of my makeup. And it's a part of why I am able to be who I am today. And some of you would say, that's what's wrong with you. Yes. But it was impartation from each of them that allowed me to be who I was. So this mama, that it like I said, it's important. We don't know what our kids should be, but we gotta make sure that we take the time that while they're with us, the scriptures tell us, raise them up in the way that they should go so that when they're old, they won't depart from it. Like we have a responsibility. Life beats them up. Life beats them up. And so we have a responsibility to our young people to make sure that when they leave our home, when they're ready to go, blessings, Brother Tony D. I see you. I see you there. Look at the Lord. Perfect timing. Because our brother has been asking a question that I think is really important. Where it talks about is it appropriate, for kids to still be home. And it's like I believe we have a responsibility to pour into them until they're ready able to stand on their own. Times we're living in right now, I think there's wisdom in planning to be together as long as you need to be, as long as you're able to maintain together. Because I'll talk about that today. Um, but we see this mom take some steps of the life of her son, not knowing that he would be the one to help guide their through a wilderness experience. And so let's go. Verse 3. But when she was no longer able to hide him, she took a papyrus basket for him and sealed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and set it among the reeds along the edge of the Nile. His sister stationed herself at a distance to find out what would happen to him. So she didn't just throw him in the water. She puts him in a place of protection. She puts him in safety and then sends someone to watch over him. Oh, there's so much you could talk about. Standing watch over the gift that the Lord gave you, the things that He put in us to do, the through us. Like we have a responsibility to steward those things. And so she just put a basket and push them down the river. And talked, as we see in things, see in some of the interpretations and movies and things. No, 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 no. She puts him. She makes sure that he's in a safe place. Doesn't just put him in any old basket, but she puts him in a strong basket that's going to be able to bear his weight, but also stay afloat. Then she puts protective covering around that basket to ensure that he's water worthy, that he's seaworthy, that he's going to get to where it is that he needs to be. Don't just send your kid prayer before you go. Don't just send them out into the world uncovered and unprotected. Protect them, cover their school. See what don't just let the professionals be the only people speaking. The professionals are the ones telling your kids that they need to pick pronouns. The professionals are the ones that are teaching your children how to learn. Don't just send your children out. Hey, she took good care and somebody to watch over him. So yeah, we have a responsibility to steward what the Lord allows us to produce. It says in 5, and then the daughter of down to wash herself by the Nile while her attendants were walking alongside the river, and she saw the basket among the reeds. She sent one of her attendants and saw the child, a boy, crying. And she felt compassion for him and said, the Hebrews' children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, sing one for you from the Hebrews, so that she may nurse the child for you. Now, again, quick rabbit trail, and I'm about it is. We of what Hebrews look like. And we've seen this happen throughout our scriptures here, where an Egyptian is able to identify the So she looked at this baby and immediately knows this child is not an Egyptian. However, clearly there's enough similarity in appearance. Other people see Hebrews and see Hebrews, believe they're thinking that there's something to ponder. Remember, that's what I do. My goal is to provoke you to think about some things. Okay, that's it. Then his sister said to Pharaoh, "Shall I go and get a nursing woman for you from the Hebrews, so that she may nurse the child for you?" See, this is why we watch over our children. This is why it's good to have somebody look out for your kids, watching over your children. Cover them in prayer, so the Holy Spirit is watching over them. But also, you make sure that that the people know that you're concerned about your child, because that's a child that they'll look out for. That child that issues and nobody's coming to check, nobody's coming to see. Our school systems are so busy, the teachers are so full of things to do, that child will get looked over. Is being, there's active parent participation whenever it, provides itself. You can't just roam in school and go and take over that. That's not how that works. But when the opportunity allows, part of what's going on with your child's education, take part in that. Again, don't just let the professional be the one speaking to your child's life. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get a nursing woman for you from the Hebrews, so that she may nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said, so the young girl went and got the child's mother. Look at that. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. So now she's the moves that she made has positioned her son to be kept alive, but not only kept alive, under the watchful care of Pharaoh. Not only under the watchful care of Pharaoh, but she's going to be paid care of her own child, to nurse her own child. Like, you don't know the blessing that's attached to you. I'm just trying to tell you, you don't know the blessings that are available on your life. Moms, dads, aunties, uncles, surrogates. You don't know the blessing that is attached with taking care of others' children. Blessing attached to it. So we have a responsibility to these young people around. The child grew older. She brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, which is in Hebrew, Mosheh. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him from the water." And so we see his name is Moshe. Moses, which means in Hebrew, from a primitive root that is Mosheh, which means to pull, to draw out. And so it's interesting. He's in Egypt. She knows he's a Hebrew, and he's allowed a Hebrew name. That's interesting. Verse 11. Remember, even when Pharaoh gave Joseph a Hebrew a name, his Egyptian name was different than some of the others. And his Egyptian name didn't tie him to one of the gods of Egypt. It was Egyptian in that it allowed him to be addressed in the Egyptian way, but that didn't become, like, Egypt didn't become him. He didn't become Egypt just because he was in Egypt. He didn't become what was around him. And so we see something similar happening to him. Moshe is going to be raised in the palace in Egypt, but his name is going to be even different. In those days when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and observed their hard work. And he saw an Egyptian man attacking a Hebrew man, one of his own people. He looked this way and that and saw that no one was there. And then he attacked the Egyptian and concealed the body in the sand. When he went out the next day, there were two Hebrew men fighting. So he said to the one who was in the wrong, "Why are you attacking your fellow Hebrew?" The man replied, "Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Are you planning to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?" Then Moshe was afraid, thinking, "Surely what I did has become known." And so when Pharaoh heard about this event, he sought to kill Moshe. So Moshe fled from Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian, and he settled by a certain well. Now, a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and began to draw water and fill the troughs in order to water their father's flock. Now, you remember, I told you way back that everything is important. We read about Midian. And so we know that while Midian is in a different region, while Midian is a different people, they're actually still a part of the family because Midian, the people of Midian, Midian was a son of Abraham, Keturah, and so still family. But we remember I told you don't skim over those names and things like everything is important. And so we see he's about to end up in the care of distant family. So when some shepherds came and drove them away, hold up, did I miss somewhere? Yeah. Now, priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and began to draw water and fill the troughs in order to water their father's flock. When the shepherds came and drove them away, Mosheh came up and defended them and then watered their flock. So when they came home to their father Reuel, he asked, "Why have you come home so early today?" They said, "An Egyptian man rescued us." See what I'm talking about? Remember? See what it's. So these Egyptians and Hebrews are looking pretty similar here. Come off my soapbox. Why have you come home so early today? No, I'm just saying. Moses didn't look like Charles Henson. Anyhow, they said an Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherds. He actually drew water for us and watered the flock. He said to his daughters, "So where is he? Why in the world did you leave the man? Call him so that he may eat a meal with us." And these daughters are clearly different. It says Moshe agreed to stay with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe in marriage. When she bore a son, Moshe named him Gershom, for he said, "I have become a resident foreigner in a foreign land," a ger, if you will, in Hebrew. So things are moving along for young Moshe. During that long period of time, the king of Egypt died, so we got passing of Pharaoh. And the Israelites groaned because of the slave labor. They cried out in their desperate cry because of their slave labor up to Elohim. Elohim heard their groaning. Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. Elohim saw the Israelites, and Elohim understood. I underline, as we prepare our closing, I underline remembered and underline understood because, again, as I'm doing my reading, as those words jump out at me, one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to find those things that seem curious to you and look at them. Take the time when you're studying. So I don't know what to study, what you're reading. What you're reading many times is going to, if you will sit down and press into those things that seem like peculiarities to you, they'll show you something. And I've recently over the last few years or so, come to know some different thoughts on how God works, how he operates. And there's a theory out there that talks about, God is ever learning. He's learning, and it's like he's all sufficient. He's sovereign. I don't think he's learning. I think that the language that we use when we talk about the Lord would lead you to believe that, but that's not what the scriptures are telling us. Exodus 24, when it says that Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, it's not that the Lord forgot his covenant. The word that is used there is zakar, and it's from a root word that means to mark, as in recognize or be mindful of. It's not a forgetting of the covenant that was made with Abraham. It's just simply puts me in mind that we're at a spot where it's about to be a benefit released from this covenant relationship. Let me be know that not just the people that I'm watching from afar. This is not just a people that's in the world. This is a people that I made a promise to, that I would be their God and they would be my people. And these people are now crying out for help, ever present help in time of trouble. These people are calling out for my help. Scriptures tell us as new covenant believers that we can approach the throne of grace. We can come boldly. That's not an arrogant, but that's a full confidence that the Lord hears us and is able to answer. And so this remembered isn't he forgot about Israel. No, 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 no. And people will say that it's like the Lord forgot about me. No, he's ever present. He's always with us. He didn't forget Israel. Their cry out to him puts him in mind. When you hear people talk about, pulling on the Lord, putting putting an expectation in the atmosphere. Yeah, talking to him as the one who is able to be the answer to the question. And then it says he saw the Israelites and he understood. And some would read that to say, well, because he's looking at them, now he understands. That's not what that word means. The word that is used there is yada. And there is a yada that's praised. Yada, extend your hand. That's not that yada. This yada is to ascertain by seeing. And so because of what I'm seeing, I now know. Not I just learned, but I'm convinced that what I and what I'm seeing are consistent. And so now with a relationship that I have with these people, for me to make a move because I said when they cried out to me that I would hear them. I said that if they would be my people, I would be their God. And so we're about to see the Lord begin to make some moves to relieve them of this cry out. And I'm firmly convinced that many times a lot of the things that are hard for us, that are difficult for us, and it just seems like we've been going through a long time. Well, it's not that I haven't been praying, but yeah, these verses are telling us that there is a cry to the Lord that is the answer, not a complaint to the Lord, but a cry to him to move. And he's faithful to do just that. Now, sometimes tells he moves and what righteousness dictates. And you say, you know what? I've had some experiences and the way out didn't seem like righteous to me. But remember that story of Joseph that we just got done reading. By the time he gets to being almost killed by his brothers wanting to kill him, sold into slavery, goes through an experience in prison. But by the time he gets to the place where all of those things have ceased and the Lord has caused good to happen to him in the land of Egypt, that he's able to birth a child that is named, his wife is able to birth the child. But of course, he produces the seed to have a child. You know what I'm saying. He has a child that he names Manasseh because the goodness that I'm experiencing here now is so good that whatever the bad was, it's overwhelmed. I'm not even seeing it. And then when it gets to the end of life of his dad and the brothers are concerned, hey, wait, maybe Joseph is going to take revenge on us for the things that we did. His answer back to his brothers is, man, I ain't even thinking about that. So you intended it to break me down. Hasatan, Satan, the devil, the adversary. He intended those difficult things to break you. But what he didn't know was the resolve that was within you, what God had put in you, that ability to go through and learn, that ability to go through and be made better. I don't tell anybody that it was good that my mama died, that it was good that my grandmother passed, and that for 3 consecutive years we had lost. But what I can stand here today and tell you is what it built in me is an understanding that the Lord will never leave me nor forsake me. Though I went through difficult things, I didn't go through those difficult things alone. And while we are still yet healing, he is still perfecting. And so the pain that was in my heart over the loss, I miss those women every single day. But the pain that was there's been some lessons that I've learned through that pain. And now I can tell somebody, go on, hold on, hang on, don't give up. You can endure. You can make it. I know it seems like, ugh, but you can make it. You can make it. And so we're about to see the Lord continue to work together some things to the good of these people who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so join me tomorrow. We're going to see Moses after he spent this time out in the wilderness and he spent this time out with the people there in Midian, and the Lord has blessed him with a wife, and all of those things that have transpired for him. We're now about to see him called into service. And so we will, if the Lord allows, we'll be here tomorrow. Tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I just said that, and that is not true. If the Lord allows, we'll gather together Sunday evening. Sunday is going to be such a long day, but I do anticipate being fully amped enough to do a recap from some of the things that we talked about this week. Go back and look at some of those stories and some of the lessons that we saw along the way. But wow, as the old folks say, should the Lord tarry and the creek don't rise, we'll be morning with Exodus 3, Shemot, Exodus 3, the burning bush. So we're going to see Mosheh activate. Holy Spirit, activate, activate, activate. So, as we always say, I pray that you are on your way to a full and productive day, that you have to fulfill on today. That completion is the covering over your work today. That you accomplish well the things that you have to. As a charged nephew, when I'm putting him out of the car at school, on the days that I have him, high points, no calls. What's that? Achieve much and don't get in any trouble. Accomplish a lot. Do good things. Learn today. Do something good for somebody today. But don't get in trouble today. He gives me that okay, and we're both off to an amazing day. So I want to encourage you, go. It looks like it's going to be a little cloudy here in St. Louis, but I'm still going to have an amazing day. Why? Because this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Bye. See you Sunday night or Monday, whichever one. Have a good one.